It's been a while. Oliver, I'm employed here as a flight attendant. Now, what are you doing? More than 10 years after I left school, I ran with Ashley, a beautiful French student with whom I had a falling out in high school, at the airport. When I decided to leave high school, she teased me about it. As a high school dropout, you couldn't possibly be accomplishing anything remarkable. She kept talking to me with that harsh expression in her eyes and an attitude of arrogance, asking, "Why are you at the airport at all?" "I'm a pilot for your company," I said, feeling a bit uncomfortable. "What? A pilot? That's impossible for a high school dropout to do," she remarked. As I was going to explain, she actually left because she was called away by a colleague. We reconnected under the most regrettable of circumstances. We didn't anticipate how closely our lives would become intertwined with Ashley's. Oliver is my name. I'm a first-year high school student living in a 4-person family with my parents and younger sister, Sky. My father's parents have died, but my mother's parents are still alive. My grandfather is French, and my grandparents live in France, thus I'm 25% French. Peers often ask, "Can you speak French?" when you're just a fourth French. Being a quarter French does not, however, mean that you were born speaking French. I'm now putting a lot of effort into my studies so that I can communicate with my grandfather, who doesn't speak English, via video calls. Although we haven't met yet, my grandparents and I plan to visit France soon. As a consequence, I become excited about my French lessons and put in extra effort to study and polish. Typically, Ashley, a French student in my class, and I compete for the top spot on French exams. Ashley defeated me to the top place in the last exam, which inspires me to win the following one. Although not on a field trip, our class gets along well overall, yet everyone creates their own rivalries after examinations. Moreover, half of us recently went to an aquarium. Ashley and I, of course, took part as well. After a tough time, Ashley and I ended up battling in pride and winning a French copy of the leaflet about the aquarium trip. It is, after all, an aquarium manual, which is why it has fewer fish names. Since everything was in French, we were unable to understand what it was discussing. We immediately said, "Oh no," as soon as we opened the booklet. But there was no going back now. We tried to understand the French pamphlet all day, but when we were both watching, we truly couldn't understand half of it. I remember that a few weeks before to the aquarium, we went to an airplane museum with a few other people. I want to be a pilot since I've always liked flying. Ashley got free tickets, so she invited me and a few of my closest friends. I was excited to see that the museum featured both the history of commercial aviation and the newest advancements in passenger aircraft technology. I chatted enthusiastically about how beautiful airplanes are during a break at the museum's cafe, which kind of turned off the other people. Ashley, though, was the only one who listened through to the very finish without showing any contempt. Ashley must be an avid traveler as well. The carefree days of high school appeared to have a bright future, but it proved to be a charming delusion. It was nearing the end of the first year of high school on a snowy day. We didn't have any snow removal equipment ready because it doesn't snow very often where we live. However, we determined that it would be preferable to use a shovel, given the nighttime snowfall, so my dad went to the home store to get one. Normally, we would have to drive to the home center, which is rather distant and located along the highway, but we didn't have chains. My sister and I were watching the house, so they decided to go on foot, as driving in the snow was obviously too risky. We discussed how much Mom and Dad had aged. We made a joke that since they were so late, they would be getting coffee at a cafe because it was too chilly outside. They arrived extraordinarily late. We were beginning to wonder if they had fallen somewhere when my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I reluctantly answered, discovering it was a police call. As my parents were strolling down the highway, a truck that had skidded on the ice struck them. They died before they could be operated on, despite the fact that an ambulance was called right away. Although I was the one who took the phone, my sister saw right through my expression and started crying. I saw as well, holding her. I was unable to think because of how awful everything was. At 15, all I could do was cry with my sister. Now what should we do? Our maternal grandparents in France were our only remaining choice, since our paternal grandparents in the United States had already passed away. As soon as they heard the news, they took off for the United States. They made the following suggestion at the wake and funeral: "Why don't you come live with us in France? You can each have a spare room from us. Don't worry about school, you may sign up for one over there." It was scary to leave the country of my birth and upbringing, the United States. Nevertheless, we were left with little option but to rely on our kindly and reassuring grandparents once our parents passed away. My sister had the same thoughts. The following day, I told my classmates, "I'm quitting school and going to my grandma's place in France." It's sudden. Naturally, they were all taken aback. I kept the news of my parents passing to myself since I didn't want to burden them. To them, it felt like the person who had been absent for a week suddenly returned to class and announced his intention to drop out. Ashley, in particular, was adamantly against it. "Calm down, Oliver, and focus. You won't have any options for the future if you drop out of high school. Don't you want to become a pilot?" she spoke, almost crying with rage. However, I was too distraught to think about Ashley's actual meaning at the time because I had just lost my parents. If there was nothing we could do, did it really matter right now? My sister and I were in danger. Our grandparents in France were our only source of support. I had some misgivings, though. "It is not relevant to you. I am traveling to France." I lost my temper. Everyone in the class was astonished to see Ashley and me, who are normally on excellent terms, yelling at each other like this. We stormed out of the classroom, neither of us having the luxury to give a damn about the surroundings. Ashley missed school the day after that, and the day after that, I left for France without making up my mind. It was years ago. I was enrolled in a high school in France as soon as I got there. Although I believed I had studied French extensively, the high school subjects taught in the language were quite difficult. I was repeatedly taught words by my grandparents. Together, we would read school announcements and textbooks, with them translating into English whatever I didn't understand. At first, my sister had a hard time adjusting to the French middle school and would frequently cry. But in less than 2 months, she gained friends, surpassed me in French, and even taught me some slang. I never missed a grade and advanced through high school gradually because of my family. I continued on to university after I stopped having linguistic difficulties. I became a pilot, realizing a lifelong desire. I worked for a French airline for a few years before being recruited by an American airline and moving back to the States. As I was enjoying the comforting atmosphere of the airport, I unexpectedly recognized Ashley. Ashley, who I'm going to start working as a flight attendant for next month, and I had a falling out in high school. Ashley came running up when she saw me, carrying her carry-on and walking with confidence in her outfit. Her eyes opened in surprise, but she followed up with a slightly patronizing, "Long time no see. Here I am, employed as a flight attendant, Oliver. What are you doing right now, following your high school dropout?" Feeling a little uncomfortable, I replied, "I'm a pilot for your company." Ashley had a perplexed expression. "You're right, maybe we go get some coffee." It happened just as I was going to invite her to chat about my stay in France. Ashley quickly left after receiving a call from a coworker wearing the same outfit. Ashley, who had been stunning since high school, had grown into an even more elegant and stunning adult. She looked great in the tiny flight attendant attire. I watched, dazed, as she retreated back. Ashley gave me a quick peek back before rounding the corner. We locked eyes for a moment before hurriedly averting our confused gazes. Were we still unable to make up? Once we eventually got together, to myself, I muttered, there had always been a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that Ashley and I had broken up badly. Even so, it could have some significance to work for the same organization. I'm confident there will be a chance to make things right. I got up and walked over to say hello to the group. My first flight with the new airline went to Paris the following month. Although I've been flying for years, it was my first flight in the sense that it was with this company. It was just another airplane day. I was taking a break at the airport after making it to Paris safely. "Oliver, would you like to join me for lunch?" I received an invitation to a supper from a flight attendant colleague of Ashley's. Well, most flight attendants are really pretty, but she was especially gorgeous. Lunch is a terrific idea. "Hey, how about if we also bring Ashley?" I proposed, reasoning that having Ashley join would make it more enjoyable. However, her colleague sighed slightly and turned to leave. Ash sighed, "Oliver, You're as oblivious as ever. What is the issue? Are the two of you not getting along well, Ashley? How about we have lunch? I have a prior engagement, she said. Okay, no worries then. I turned to stare out the window endlessly as she curtly declined. Ashley said she had an earlier commitment, but she didn't head out right away. However, after a while, she gave me a quick look out the window, remarked, "Well then," and vanished. I held up a little hand to Ashley. She mentioned having a previous engagement, but I wasn't sure if it involved her co-workers who work as flight attendants. She may possibly have a boyfriend in Paris, given her extensive travels. I was uncomfortable with the idea for some reason. Perhaps I still feel something for Ashley. I did, after all, like Ashley in high school, but that was more than 10 years ago. There were girls in France that I liked too. When I worked for the Canadian airline, I had a couple of women I fancied, and I had a girlfriend when I was in college. However, it appears that I still haven't moved on from my first love because I'm feeling this uneasy merely because a casual dinner offer was turned down. I smiled ruefully and went to a cafe to have a light snack and some bitter espresso. Something happened to me a few days later while I was piloting the trip from Paris back to the United States. We were ready to land in Los Angeles when my plane experienced extreme turbulence. The instruments showed no odd readings until right before it impacted, so it had to have happened suddenly. The plane jolted violently in both directions. Thomas was flying with me today on his first international flight as a co-pilot, and he was in utter terror, not even able to report back to the ground, something he had been doing with ease only a few minutes earlier. I alerted the ground to the problem right away and asked for assistance. "Pardon me, Oliver. I need to give you a report. A number of people have been hurt," according to Ashley. Even though she was speaking calmly, her voice was shaking, and she had terrible skin, as I could see when I looked in the mirror while flying. Turbulence is common, but this instance was exceptionally strong. Thomas, and Ashley remained composed. They are the individuals I would want to rely on in an emergency, so I tried to seem calm and collected as I added, "It's going to shake, but take a sip of water." My voice was slow and steady, but my thoughts were racing. Subsequently, a warning light that indicated an engine problem began to flicker. This was not what I expected. However, one of the duties of a captain is to react to unforeseen circumstances. After telling myself 3 times to calm down, I inhaled deeply. I then gave a brief announcement to the passengers, outlining the present circumstances. Even though it's an emergency, I advise everyone to exercise caution because of the increased danger of damage caused by the shaking. Thankfully, our destination airport is not far away, and we plan to land on time. I communicated closely with the air traffic controller at the same time. Thomas was still trembling, but I could understand his fear because it was his first time traveling internationally, and he had to deal with 2 problems at once. I said to Ashley, "Ashley, please support Thomas." I recognized the sense of being overtaken, but he remained the co-pilot. Thomas needed to gather himself immediately and give me support. Ashley looked a little better after taking Bufen. System, taking a sip of water, nodded, and asked Thomas again. The fact that the air traffic controller had expertise pleased me. I thought the worst when the engine malfunctioned in the middle of the turbulence. With the controller's exact advice and instructions, though, I was able to safely land the aircraft on the runway. I learned later that the plane's occupants erupted in cheers as soon as we touched down. Although I felt bad for worrying them, I was glad that only minor cuts and bruises prevented anyone from being seriously injured. "You're an amazing person, Oliver," Thomas added after waving the passengers off. "I knew you were a skilled pilot from what the boss said, but this is beyond my expectations." He then made his way back to the cockpit. He sobbed as he took hold of my hand. "No, not at all. I simply carried out my captain's duties," I answered, though my legs were actually shaking a little. I forced a smile to cover up my anxiety. The worst possible outcome would have occurred if it had been any other pilot, Oliver. "You're the reason I'm here doing well, and all the passengers are safe." "Your assessment was truly exceptional," Thomas remarked, still moved. "It was the air traffic controller who gave us really precise instructions, so we owe it to them that we made it," I said, touched. Thomas said, "To overcome such a crisis and still be so humble, I'll strive to become a person like you." The safe landing caused him to cry for a long while. I approached Ashley, who was doing an inside inspection of the aircraft, after getting Thomas on the ground. "Ashley, are you okay?" She seemed to be limping a little, so I questioned. "Yes, I'm sorry for losing my composure earlier," she responded. "No, it's natural to be startled at first. System, but you quickly became calm and helped Thomas, which was a great help," I responded. Ashley grinned and continued, "I had to get back quickly to support the passengers because they were all anxious." "Did you hurt your foot?" "Just a tiny bit in the turbulence. I managed to twist my ankle trying to support an elderly passenger," she replied. "I'll have a look. I promised to take care of it." Ashley was forced to sit while I gently administered a damp compress and bandaged it. Observing how swollen her ankle was, I remarked, "Wearing heels probably made the twist worse." I cleaned a wound that appeared to have been made on her knee at the same time. Ashley started cringing at the sting of decontamination. Oliver," she said, "I made a huge mistake when you told me you were graduating from high school. I apologize, but it's late." "Don't worry, everything will work out." At the time, I was also under stress, so I spoke rudely, I added. "I apologize. I learned about your family's predicament later. At the time, I had no idea Yuong. System, you were going through that. I only stated those things to persuade you to stay because I was afraid and upset that you were going to leave for another nation," Ashley remarked. "I really regret what I said after learning about your family." "Everything is okay. I had also kept my family status a secret from others," I said. "All right, how about we call this a reconciliation?" As I fastened the bandage on her knee, I grinned. Ashley grinned as well. "Yes, a reconciliation after 15 years. Ashley and I were able to resume our previous easygoing relationship following the turbulent event. Ashley frequently traveled on the same aircraft as me because she worked as a flight attendant on foreign trips while I continued to fly as a captain. As a captain, I received support from all the flight attendants, of course, but Ashley's understanding made a big difference for me. She understood what I needed very quickly. "I feel more at ease on the planes you pilot than anyone else's," added Ashley. We kept our nice professional relationship going, but there was a catch. I still had affections for Ashley. I didn't know how to tell her that we were now good co-workers. I made multiple attempts to ask her out, particularly after lengthy flights, but I was often stopped by co-workers or forced to talk about work instead of expressing my feelings. First loves are said to never be satisfied. I was sitting on the airport rooftop, staring at airplanes, when Ashley arrived and sat alongside me. It was one of those days so full of hurting feelings. She said, "Oliver, have you eaten yet?" "Not yet, I was just staring at the planes and nodding off," I replied. "I believe I also bought you a sandwich over here." "Oh, I see. Thank you. You're quite considerate. Obviously, you've remained the same since high school. You used to skip lunch because you would become so absorbed in talking about planes back then." "Are you serious? I can't recall doing that." "Yes, but it was great to hear you speak so passionately about airplanes. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I also developed an interest in airplanes. I became a flight attendant for that reason. I forced you to choose a career path because of me." "Oh no, I'm grateful to you. I believe I am a good fit for this role." When Ashley talks, she typically looks at me, but not today. "Ashley, I was thrilled that you were the only one who remained up to listen to me discuss airplanes. Despite my trip to Canada, you were never far from my mind." Ashley's lips moved as she spoke, "Me too," but I couldn't hear her. I took a big breath and decided that asking her out was either now or never. "I still feel something for you, Ashley." Ashley's tone grew tense. "Oliver, will you be with me with the intention of getting married, Ashley?" She smiled, but her response was drowned out by the noise of an airplane taking off. "I love you, Ashley." I hugged Ashley tightly as her sparkling eyes filled with massive tears. "Oliver, I have also loved you all along. Even though I always wanted to be more honest and jump into your arms, I always ended up being obstinate and unable to communicate my want to be with you. It's okay, Ashley, I understand. I love everything about you, even the odd things you do sometimes. Let's be together on the ground and in the air at all times from now on. I promise that we will always be together. Now don't go anywhere. I won't go. If I do, Ashley, I'll be with you. I remember the time when I didn't go to high school. Back then, I was a defenseless child who could only turn away, but that isn't the case now. I've developed into an independent adult. Through tears, I vowed to Ashley that I would never let her feel alone again and that I would never let her leave. I have been back in the United States for years. Today, I'm flying with a lot of folks once more. Ashley is now in charge. She oversees the aboard cabin attendants in an efficient and sometimes severe manner. As she departs, the sky are beautiful. I stand at the airport and gaze up at the sky. Of course, the sky is beautiful in private or from the airport. Every country has a different sky with a different color and hue. From the cockpit, I think the most beautiful sky is the one that carries the lives of our passengers. Perhaps the sky's added beauty comes from distance. My life has had its ups and downs, but there have also been times when I felt rather hopeless. I'm happy I persisted. I'm grateful that my dream came true. I'm flying over the heavens today for that reason. Ashley and I are getting married after we finished our first love, and we were wedded this spring. I'm not going to compromise my principles. If you don't give up today, you can achieve your goals in the future. Seeing things differently, I head for the cockpit.